Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks workshop. We've got a garage sale find. This was a $10 find by a customer in Texas actually, and he just happened to be heading up this way on Highway 44, old Route 66 I guess you could say. I'm just off of the highway, so he decided he'd stop in and drop this off. Obviously it's an old Gibson. It's a 19, based on the serial number, and I'm no expert on all this stuff, guys, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but based on the serial number, and the serial number is 850957, it would be about a 1966. And if I was guessing just by looking at it, that's just about exactly where I would guess it. I'd say the mid-60s somewhere. So that's what it looks like. This one has a really crummy bridge on it. That was when they went through some of their cheap phases. This is a plastic bridge, and you can see it's pulled up and it's cracked and it's just got issues. So the bridge has to be replaced. The pickguard has come off of it, and so we'll have to be putting the pickguard on it. And we'll do a fret job and setup job on it. So we've got a work cut out for us, and we'll bring you along for the ride. I pulled the first bridge pin out, and as you can see, they're in pretty bad shape, so we will probably be replacing those as well. This bridge being a plastic bridge, I'm sure it's bolted on from the underside, so we'll be pulling that all out and straightening all that out too. Yeah, these are bent pretty bad, mostly because of the way the bridge is pulled up, I guess. They don't come out easy, I can tell you that. Yeah, they definitely don't come out easy. Each one of them's bent worse than the other one. Yeah, that one came out easy. I guess the wrapped ones were worse. Well, let's see if we can use our inspection camera and go in there and take a look and see what's inside there. I'm just reaching through the hole with a little 1/4-inch socket and holding it in my hands. Usually these are not that tight, which is just another part of the problem. Yeah, it's turning, or at least one of them is, and one in the front center, I think. Definitely loosened up. Be my luck, the whole thing will be turning or something. I think it's a little tiny bolt, so it should come out. The washer gets in the way of trying to turn it by hand. The socket pushes the washer out of the way, but by hand that washer gets right in the way. It should be coming out of there. It's loose. Let's go deeper than I think. Turned it a couple dozen times. Seems like it's just stuck. I think it's actually loose, but it's stuck. Now let's see if I can get a different one out. Yeah, the one over on this corner came out no problem. The middle one seems tight, so I'm going to go to the other one to see if it'll let me pull it out. It seems tight too. That sucks. There's really not much room to get anything else in there. Well, we'll try a different approach. Well, I added this little converter that converts it to a conventional size socket. That gives me a little bit more torque, and that seemed to do the trick. I've got the middle one loosened up a little bit now. That gave me quite a bit more torque, so that worked. There's the middle one. I'll see if I can get the one over closest to me out off the back. Yep, it's turning too. Like I said, that just made the difference in the amount of torque I could get on it. Made all the difference. That little skinny socket I couldn't twist, but the bigger one I could. So there we go. There's 3 out of the 4 out of there. And like I said, this front one I'm sure is loose. Yep, it was just being stubborn. It's just stuck up in there for some reason. It won't come out. There's an insert. That's what the problem is. No, the plastic broke off. That's what it is. It's not really an insert. You can see these 2 are still on there, although this one's broken. This one's broke all the way through the top up here. This one's broke off, so it looks like there's plastic inserts, but it's just the plastic off of this. So that's what's stuck in there. So I'll just poke that out. It's no big deal. There it is, it's through, and I'll poke this one out. Yep, it's out now. Okay, that got rid of all that. But you can see all those extra holes in there really didn't, you know, add to the structure of the guitar. That's pretty much just a straight cut line across there now, you know, which is not a good idea in my opinion. The bridge pin holes is enough of a cut line without adding those extra 3 holes in there. Anyway, it's a poor design, a cheap way to make the guitar. They were trying to cut costs, I'm sure, by putting a plastic bridge on there. But we will clean this off, make a custom bridge out of wood, out of rosewood probably, that will fit it perfectly, and it will be no more of a problem. Once again, we find ourselves cleaning off a place to put a new bridge. We've seen the plastic bridge that was on there. I made a replica rosewood bridge to take the place. Of course, I don't have the slot cut yet, but I will do that later. I've already laid the new bridge on here and I've traced around it. So now we've got to get rid of all the old finish. The old one being plastic was just bolted on. It wasn't glued at all. So we got a lot of finish to remove. But it's peeling off pretty good, so it shouldn't be too hard. Just a little time consuming. Left a little bit of a scar on the front here where the old bridge had pulled forward and actually cut the finish off, unfortunately. So we're going to have a little bit of a scar left there when we're done, but other than we can put a little finish back on there to try to make it look better. It's not hard finish. The finish is actually easy, but it's a real thin finish, and because it's so thin, it's actually kind of hard to get off. To do it smooth without gouging, I think those thicker finishes are easier to get off than this one. I'm going to try using an X-Acto knife as a scraper. That might work better in this case. Not getting the finish off as clean as I would like it, but it's working. I thought this one was going to be a piece of cake because the finish just kind of flakes off, but it's kind of odd to explain. It's as thin as it is, it's stuck pretty good. Usually those thicker ones just pop right off without too much trouble. It's not getting any extra. You get just exactly where your knife is, and that's it. You don't get any little flake. We'll bring you back when we get her done. We got her all cleaned off, and I've cleaned off the back of the new bridge. And now it's time to get this baby glued down there. I'm not going to bother trying to fill those holes that were there. Wouldn't gain much strength if I did fill them. Anyway, I'm just going to let this thing span the holes and strengthen it that way. Okay, we got plenty of glue on there. Probably a little more glue than we needed, but better a little more than not enough, that's for sure, when it comes to gluing on stuff like this. I'm going to put these pins in there temporarily just to help me line it up. Squeeze out as much as I can and get a rag and clean that up.
Have a yard sale come next Friday, selling that guitar and the mandolin. Get rid of that banjo, fiddle and doghouse, ain't playing no bluegrass no more again.
That's putting the squeeze out to it. I know there's a lot of conversation about squeezing out all the glue, and I am not worried about that. Been doing this, as you know, for a long time, and I've never once felt like I've squeezed all the glue out of the joint, so I'm not worried about that. I'm going to wash the rag out and clean it up one more time. I believe we're in very good shape with that, so we're just going to hang her up and let her sit for at least 24 hours. We got the bridge all glued up and taking the clamps off. It's been sitting for over 24 hours, so we should be in good shape. Now we can put our rig on here, and well, actually we put the rig on the back here and put a couple of strings on it to set the intonation, and we'll put just a floating saddle on here to float it back and forth till we get the intonation just exactly right. Okay, it's holding pretty close to the center there, and when I noted it's pretty close, so I've moved this around till I got it really close. Pretty darn close. I'm going to go ahead and mark that and cut the bridge, or cut the saddle slot right where it's at there. I've spent a lot of time getting this lined up as usual, and I put some marks on the top to stop me going on the travel. As often happens, the darn bit came loose again. I don't understand why that happens. I tighten it up tight and it'll come loose. Oh, never fails, right, when you get into a tedious spot. Well, I torqued her down really tight. Hopefully it'll hold this time. It looks good, but for some reason it looked like it was cut more on this end. I don't know why that would be. It's what it looked like. Let's see if it measures out that way. I don't know. About 125 thousandths. About the same. Yeah, just about exactly the same, so I guess we're good. Depth is probably, could be a hair deeper. Let me double check how deep we are. We're a little over 100 thousandths deep. About 110 thousandths. It wouldn't hurt if it was just a little bit deeper. Okay, I lowered it the bit about at 50 thousandths, so we're going to try cutting it a little bit deeper now. Okay, we'll put the shim back in and we'll cut the front side of it now. Well, that looks real good now. It's nice and deep. Pull all the rig off of here and get started making the saddle. Well, I didn't film making this saddle, but it's another piece of deer antler, and I spent a lot of time getting it to fit exactly in there. I mean, it literally, again, it looks like it grew in there. There's no space around it anywhere, and it's, you know, you can push it down in there and pull it back out, but you got to use a little bit of force both directions to get it in and out. So it's just exactly the way it should be. There's no play whatsoever. It's probably quite high right now, but I'm not going to worry about the height until after I get the strings, the fret job done. We're going to level the frets and clean up the fretboard and possibly even make a new nut. We're leveling out all the frets on it. There's some pretty deep grooves up in here. This thing has the very large frets in it. They can be filed many times before you have to replace these kinds of frets. A couple of little tiny grooves still just barely visible, so I'm going to go just a little bit more.
I'm always playing that bluegrass music when I got 100 other things to do. My wife used to tell me, can you ever do better? So to keep her happy, here's what I'll do.
I can still see a little bit of a groove there, but I can't really feel it even with my thumbnail or fingernail. So I think by the time we round them off and polish them up a little bit, they're going to be just fine. There's a lot of crud on this fingerboard, and we're going to level all that out here in a minute too. I'm using this type of fret file. Not that it's any better than any other one. It's just one I'm used to. I will show you that I did actually cut these outer edges down on it because I found on a lot of cases they were rubbing down against the fretboard. So I got rid of that and just have the round part of the file left. These frets appeared to have been filed a couple of times, but didn't look like they'd been recrowned. So it's a little bit more work to recrown them this time than it would ordinarily be.
I'm gonna have a yard sale come next Friday. Sell that guitar and the mandolin.
Okay, we're gonna take the razor blade now and clean up in between the fretboard. This is gonna make this look a lot better. I'm gonna zoom you in so you can see how bad this is. You can see it's pretty grimy. A lot of crud on there. When we take this razor blade and clean it up, it makes it look almost like brand new.
Give me that banjo, fiddle and doghouse. Ain't playing on bluegrass no more again.
The further we go, the less crud there is and more just dark tarnish or dark aging, weathering. This is a lot harder to do than it looks like. It's really strenuous on your hands, on your fingers. I'm really putting a lot of torque on that blade.
I'll keep my radio and all my records, so I'll have something to listen to.
Well, I got ahead of myself. I meant to polish those up with some 600 grit sandpaper. So I'll probably have to go back through there and clean that up again. Makes the frets look so much nicer.
A new hobby, like playing checkers. So to keep her happy, here's what I'll do.
Okay, well that, like I said, was good and bad. Now I have to go back through and clean up the fretboard again. Should have done that first. I didn't think of it. All right, we'll oil her up and make her look like brand new.
I'm gonna have a yard sale come next Friday. Selling that guitar and the mandolin.
And as always, I always wipe it off right away and then come back in about 5 minutes and wipe it off again. There's a number of little dings on this guitar in the dark areas here, and I'm just going to touch them up with a little brush, and like there's a little tiny hairline looking crack there. The little pick gouges is what they look like, and so I'm just touching them up a little bit. Anyway, that'll make them look a little better. I'll buff out the top a little bit and make it look a little nicer. Won't hurt to put a little bit of linseed oil on those areas either, since they're scratched up. I'm going to just go ahead and rub linseed oil over the whole top surface lightly. Put it on this new bridge that I made. There's some white paint specks back here on the back of the guitar. Somebody had it somewhere where they were painting and splattered little paint specks all over it. I don't know if you can see those in the camera or not. You can see, I think, right in here, there's little paint specks all over the place. Okay, again, I wiped this all over this whole top of this guitar, and I will dry it off pretty much entirely right now, and then I'll come back in 5 minutes and dry it again. This won't have the same issues because there's a finish on this, but this will keep this finish from drying out and getting hard and brittly, which it already is. got to get a pick guard for it. I put that video out there for help. I did get some sources. I haven't had a moment to really investigate them yet to see if I can find what I'm looking for. But so far what I've seen just in a quick look is that the material's either too thick or it's too red. And so I haven't really found just a brown tortoiseshell, thin brown tortoiseshell yet. But that's what I'm looking for. Don't know how well you'll be able to see what I'm doing here, but this particular zipper, the hook or the little handle was off of the zipper. So I took a cotter pin, if you know what a cotter pin is, and I formed it into the shape of one of those little handles. And now I'm going to solder the two ends of the cotter pin together. And before I do that, I'm going to put this under here so the dripping solder won't fall in my carpet. Got a little bit of extra dripping solder there, so I'm going to take that off if I can get it off. See if there's any more dripping out there. That looks good. This little gizmo is handy for little detail-y work like that. And that's probably still hot, but maybe you can see how I just take that little cotter pin there and then make a handle for the zipper, so now the zipper works. So, makes a nice little handle. I've done it before. I'm going to take a little file now and just file off any little burrs that the solder left. Just get any little sharpness off of it. Okay, that feels pretty good. Don't really feel anything burred with any sharpness on it now. So that should make a nice handle now for the zipper. Just thought I'd show you how you could repair your zippers. I know there's a zillion of them out there like this. And I had to close this down a little bit too because this was a little bit open. So I took a pliers and squeezed that down a little bit so that this won't turn loose again. For this guitar, I need to make a pick guard. I had an old pick guard that I just saved. I thought I could use it as a pattern. Unfortunately, it's quite a bit bigger than what was on this guitar. It's almost the same shape. So I started with that. I cut it out of paper, and then I laid it. I got this part here cut pretty close and this part cut pretty close. So then I just taped it to it, and then I just kept lifting it up and just trying to draw the outline of what I could see from where the old pick guard had been. And I've got it pretty close. Is it perfect? Probably not, but it's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out of paper, and we'll see how close it matches. Well, does this look like $65 worth of material? It's a very thin plastic, and by the time you pay shipping and everything, that's what this costs, $65 for those two pieces. I bought this from Luthier's Mercantile, which was a source that I've been using for years, but you know, people recommended it, and so I went ahead and you know, my only problem with Luthier's Mercantile is, to be honest with you, it's really hard to tell what you're buying from their descriptions and pictures. I think it's a very good company, but the online part of it is a little difficult for me to understand, I think. But anyway, so I've got the paper pattern cut out here. I think I'm going to use this one. It's the closest match to the what the original used to look like, I think. This, keep in mind, this came off of a different guitar, but I'm assuming it probably looks something like this. But anyway, that's the closest I can come up with. And when I lay it on here, of course, when I lay the new one on here, you know, I can't quite get two out of this. And keep in mind, the new one, or this one, is smaller. But it's sad, right here they overlap, so I could, you know, if I wanted to do another one down the road, I'd be short a little bit of material just by just a little notch there. It's a sad deal. So, you know, I can probably only get one pick guard, certainly of this size, out of it. If I had another one this size, I could probably get another pick guard out of it, or smaller, of course. Anyway, it's going to be tough to tell the customer that this little pick guard is going to cost, you know, upwards of $40 by the time I get it made and put on here. It's kind of sad, but that's just the way it is. All right, I have I went ahead and buffed out the top. You can probably see it's pretty shiny now. so I haven't waxed it or anything. I have the new pickguard cut out and I have it laid on here. I also beveled the edges with a file, but I've got it where it's hinged here, and so I should be able to just peel this backing off, hopefully, and lay it right on there. Just checking my hinges to make sure they're in the right place. And should be able to drop it on and work it from the center out. Now this still has a protective coating of plastic on top of the pickguard, and I'm not sure. A lot of times I let the customer peel that off if they want it off, and sometimes I take it off. I guess it just depends. But now if I can get my little tape off of here. Here she is. She's on there, and she's on there to stay. Ain't coming off now. And it does match up pretty good. It looks okay. I'm not, that plastic isn't my favorite plastic, I gotta be honest. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wax it now. I'm going to leave the little protective plastic on here, and I'm going to wax the top, and then I'll peel the plastic off of there. I've got new pins for this bridge, and they come with the end down here kind of blocked off. So what I'm going to do is take a file and file every one of those off at a bevel. I'll show you what they look like when I'm done. Okay, it only took about 4, 5, 6 strokes per pin to bevel those off. Hopefully you can see how they're all beveled. What that does is when you put that button in there, it lets that button slide past there, and that it doesn't get caught on the end button. You've probably seen these things go flying out of a guitar, and that's because the button is sitting on the end of this. It's not supposed to sit on the end. It's supposed to slide past it. So that's what the bevel does, is allows it to slide past it. Okay, we're going to string this thing up, and there's no point in me filming that, so I'll bring you back when we get some strings on it. I'm sure a lot of repair guys run into this, but every once in a while you run into a nut that you cannot get a tool on. I mean, the hole is so closed in around the nut that you can't literally put a tool on it at all. And so what I'm going to do here, I don't like to do this, but I do it every once in a while, is I'm going to go in here with a real fine Dremel tool bit, and I'm going to actually route out a little bit of room where we can actually get a wrench on this nut.
You fiddle that banjo, fiddle that doghouse, ain't playing no bluegrass no more again.
With this process, it's always easy does it, because you don't want to do something stupid and like cut all the way through to the back side or something like that. And we just about got her whipped now. I think that's going to work. Yep, that's going to work. Yeah, it was just crazy. You couldn't get anything in there, and therefore that nut was really loose. It wasn't tight at all, and it needs to be tighter. Looking down the neck there, and it looks pretty straight now with that tightening up like that, which is what I'm after, because it's been many years of played loose. Okay, we got her snugged up pretty tight, and that ought to help. Well, we've got her all strung up, polished up. I spent a little bit more time off camera setting the action and getting that all just right. It's got a nice tone. I tell you what, I think for a $10 garage find, I think it's a pretty good deal. Of course, he's got more money in it than that now with all the work I had to do on it, making a new bridge. Remember, it had the plastic bridge on there. We made a custom pickguard for it, which I think matches really well. And actually, after I took the little plastic off of it, I think it actually looks pretty darn good on there now. And of course, we put new strings on it. We adjusted the action up here at the nut. Did some of that stuff off camera. We buffed it out, made it look real nice. I'll tell you what, I'll give him his $10 for it if he doesn't want it. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Tell your friends.